Welcome back, everybody. Derek Stew, your East Oakland advocate. Well, March is coming to a close, and I almost forgot that this is Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. And so that's very personal for me because I am a survivor of colorectal cancer. I was able to uh, beat it because I had early detection, and testing is key to successfully beating this cancer. And some of the things that you need to kind of know. Um, Colorectal cancer is on the rise in younger people. This morning I was watching a show where a young mother, she was only 36, and she just was starting her pregnancy, and colon cancer was detected, and so they did all sorts of tests to um, verify if it was or was not, and it finally came down to an MRI that verified the actual cancer in her liver. And then also there was some other things that were detected. So early detection is key. And um, right now, I hope you have a good primary care doctor, HMO, PPO, uh, something. I have county medical through Alameda Health Systems, and my coverage is through Alliance, Alameda Alliance. So I'm covered, and my ongoing issues um, with the follow-up treatments and the years of um, checking back in with my oncologist, also keeping up with my annual tests and checkups with my primary care doctor at Eastmont um, Wellness Center. And so these are all very important and vital. Once you've beat cancer, so to speak, through treatment, I actually had um, surgery. I was in the hospital for 6 days in recovery, and then uh, I've been on a bag ever since, and that's not. I can't go back to the way I used to be. So because the cancer was literally just inside the rectum, and there was not enough uh, of the rectum muscle to reattach to the intestine that comes down into that area, and so there was the call was made on the table, and I was already aware that there was a high probability that that was going to happen, that I was not going to um, have go to bathroom number two in the traditional way that most people do. And so, but it was horrible going through the radiation treatment, because the radiation treatment, they do their best to try and maintain your efficacy for propagating, but in my case, that didn't happen. And so the radiation sterilized me. And then what did work, the surgery, they nicked uh, a muscle, is what they said. And so now I have permanent ED. And so there's nothing that can be done. And I'm at an age where I don't want any kids anyway. I didn't want kids back during my career because they're a liability, and I didn't want liabilities or to leave liabilities behind if something happened to me in my counterterrorism work. And so I didn't expect to live this long. In fact, I have two generations, and when I was at going through everything back in 2015, uh, they were telling me that this is just something that happens. It's not genetic. And I told the doctor, bullshit. because my grandfather, on both sides, had colorectal cancer and died from it, because back then they didn't fully understand the cancer. They just tried to make you as comfortable as possible. And also back then, colorectal cancer wasn't called that. It was called the old man's disease, and or colon cancer, not colorectal cancer. They just call it colon cancer. And also, my mother had it. My mother had colon cancer and had a large portion of her intestines removed. Or and so it ran in my family, and it was and the doctor was very interested, my oncologist, because they never had uh, um, records and documentation that they could actually go back and look at, and see that it was quite possibly genetics. And but the difference was that I tested positive and I contracted the cancer at a much younger age than my father and my grandfather. And my grandfathers, plural, because both of my grandfathers were in their 70s at the time. My father was 76 when he passed away from colon cancer. He was just a couple of months away from turning 77. So again, it was referred to as the old man's disease back in my day during the 60s and 70s and even into the 80s, because I had uncles that were in the family that also contracted and um, died from colorectal cancer or old man's disease back then. And one of the really disturbing things is not only is it starting to affect younger people, and it's now male and female. Predominantly before it was just the males, and that's why it was called the old man's disease, not the old lady's disease. And so now we're finding younger adults, even in their 30s, as young as their 30s, uh, having to deal with this very deadly disease. And it is considered the second deadliest cancer in America currently. It's killing more people than cigarettes. And it's one of the most deadly cancers because it can go undetected for years and really manifest into something really horrible. And in the case that when I opened up this blog here, that woman was stage 4. Stage 4. That is, nobody survives technically, but she did, and she was very fortunate, and I attribute that to mostly age, because the resilience of a younger body versus an older person like myself who contracted it, and it changes your life. It didn't appear to change her life that dramatically, but again, like I said, age is a plus and an advantage. Whereas the old man's disease, we were pretty weak to begin with, and then we became weaker uh, because of the treatments and remedies. But it's predicted that 1 in 24 people will have colorectal cancer. They will test positive this year, 1 in 24. And here's this one of the statistics that I heard this morning. Back in 1995, out of all the screenings that they were doing, only 11% tested positive, came back positive. Only 11%. In 2019, that same number had jumped to 20%. That's significant for a cancer, and that's That's scary, especially for you younger folks. Uh, I attribute mine to my poor diet because I was traveling a lot, and then you don't always have a choice on what you eat when you're in another country and on assignments, and so you can't control your diet, and so sometimes you eat some things that are more heavily processed or have a lot of sugar, lots of salts and fats, and so those are things that all are that we believe are contributing factors. And then also, I was a very, very heavy coffee drinker. And if you see how coffee pots, coffee cups get, with that buildup that everybody's, hey, that's the flavor. Well, that same stuff is building up on your arteries and your heart walls and your veins. And that's what brings on heart attacks and strokes. And so I had a very mild one number of years ago, mild heart attack, very little damage done to my heart, so I was very lucky on that one. But that was because the contributing factor was that I was in good shape again. And so these are all important things. Again, youth benefits, seniors, not so much. But currently, for closing this out, this is Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. And so advised screenings by the CDC begins at age 45 now, not 50. Because when I was screened, I was already in the 50-ish category. And so they were saying, well, you need to take this. It's non-invasive. So folks, there's nothing that you have to do. Just the package will come in the mail, either delivered by UPS or USPS. And inside the box, it's a little container, and what you're going to do is swab your number 2 in the toilet and swab it onto the little pad inside of there 2 different days. So you do it the first morning, and then you go the whole day without doing it, and then the following morning you do another sampling, put that in, seal it, and put it in the enclosed packaging, and just drop it in the mail. That's all you have to do, and it's very simple. It gets tested, and then your doctor will contact you with those results. In my case, my doctor told me to come into the office. I have your test results and we need to talk. And so that's never a good sign when your doctor tells you that. And that's what I had to deal with. And then when we actually sat down, he was talking about doing all these different tests, these x-rays, and then the first line of treatment was going to be radiation, and they told me where I was going, the doctor and everything, so I was very comfortable with that portion. And so this is your crossroad. This is literally your crossroad when you're sitting down with that doctor talking about your treatment options. Or if you were like my dad, who said, I'm going to live forever and I'm going to beat this without treatment, he died. And so that was the crossroad. My dad decided that he wanted to stick with his beliefs, as he is Buddhist. Not that I have anything against that, but that was just his belief. And so he refused treatment. And internally, that cancer ate through not only his rectal muscles and everything there, but also started eating his intestines. And then that when he collapsed, it was from the blood loss from the cancer, and he was bleeding internally. And they literally had to put four bags of blood into my dad to keep him alive, to get him into the morning, because his blood was so low, his blood pressure had dropped to very, very dangerously low levels. So it is a horrible, horrible disease to watch a person go through, because I watched the deterioration of my grandfather, Thomas Lou, and I watched his final days in his bedroom that was set up for him, because the hospital said there's nothing more that we can do, and you may as well go home and die rather than die here in the hospital where it's extremely expensive. And so my grandfather literally spent the last 5, 6 months of his life in the home, and he died in the home. So that that was just part of life. But yet, he was older. He was in his 70s. He died on my birthday, February 10th of 1960. Or not 1960, 1974. I was 14 at the time. So he died in 1974 on my birthday, because the call, uh, my grandmother called my mother at 9 o'clock that morning on my birthday. So it wrecked the day for me, because my grandfather was my best friend, and I was already sad to see him in the condition that he was, and to see him deteriorate from the hero that I knew. Uh, and then I watched my dad, deteriorate, and it was very quick. It took a few years for him to meet his final demise, from the time it started and it was diagnosed to the time he actually stopped breathing, what spanned about 3.5 years. So once you get that diagnosis, the clock is running. The clock is running. And you need to decide whether you're going to take aggressive measures to sustain your life. And it's going to be life changing. Believe me, the doctors will tell you, this is your life that you know it right now will never be the same. They will tell you that. And I can guarantee you that is a fact. Your life will never be the same after treatment, and especially after surgery. And ladies that have had mastectomies and for breast cancer, I feel you. Uh, there's just, while you have some disfigurement on your chest, I have a bag that is so embarrassing to have on me at all times, and sometimes it smells, and so that's why, you know, having the lifestyle that I do is fine. I'm not lonely, and it's only me and the dog that have to deal with the odors from my bag, and then when I'm exchanging the bags, because I have to change the bag every day, and it's a real inconvenience. It's a life-changing event, and I have to make sure that my replacement garments come from the supplier in a timely fashion so that I don't run out. But I also try and keep a certain amount of reserve, and that those are my emergencies, because things do happen. And but it's a very life-changing event. Colorectal cancer, again, this is the final week of March, and March is Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. And so please be aware of this deadly disease here in America and get tested. Thanks for joining me today. We'll be right back.